Good evening, everyone. Okay, 1,678 days. Let's see if we're on. Okay, yep, there we are. Okay, 1,000. Oh, I'm coming on a little bit earlier, right? A little bit earlier. Happy Sunday, everyone. It's almost Monday morning, but lots going on, and we are patient. We are patient. I guess we've learned that from Kiki's family, right? To be patient, when you're waiting 14,600 days plus. Wow, that is amazing. 40 years they've been waiting for justice. God bless them, really. God bless them. And we hope that everything, absolutely, that they get justice for their father, for their loved one. This is day 1,678 days since Richard was brutally murdered. And it was political. It was political. It was planned. It was absolutely part of the chain of command, part of the criminal trafficking complaint, um, for the criminal trafficking. Richard didn't want to lockstep with their criminal scheme. That's what, and their criminal scheme. I mean, how many ways can you say deep state? Really? How many ways? There's no other way for me. I probably should have just named this deep state. Are we allowed to even say that word? I don't know. I'm being shadow banned. It doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you um, that this whole thing with Kiki Camarero. I hope I'm saying his name right. The DEA agent that was taken and tortured and brutally murdered 40 years ago. This 40 years ago, okay? So you have a DEA agent that was brutally murdered 40 years ago, and we're just now getting the arrest of Rafael Caro Quintero, who is the alleged perpetrator. So we see that we see the long wait, the injustice in the Walmart mass shooting case, don't we? Where where what this uh, 6 years, 6 years, and the Walmart mass shooting as horrible and absolutely horrible and very political and very orchestrated. Um, for political reasons, to target and attack President Trump and his supporters and the MAGA agenda. Very clear. There's no if, ands, or buts. There's no questioning that. It is right there in hard evidence. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, um, and looks like a duck, it's a duck, right? This is a political attack, clearly, and the latest and recent um, corroborated actions of Beto O'Rourke, who was running for president at the time, absolutely, it confirms again that the Walmart mass shooting was a political attack, um, putting forth a false witness, a false narrative about it being racist and everything, when clearly all the evidence shows that Patrick Crusius is not a racist. Was he there? Of course he was there. He was there, and he surrendered not once but twice. But twice he went and he bought an orange before it all happened, and um, you know, but and he when he surrendered, he was, they didn't even bag his hands. They didn't read him read him his rights. He was clean, he was clean shoes and clean pants and clean. I don't even think he broke a sweat, and he was supposed to have done this like in the timing is 7 minutes or something. 5 minutes. He was supposed to have done all of this stuff, and so all in all, like 17 minutes. And there's all. We need to know, but of course, because the case is all about just making money, 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 money. We can't get a decent trial to hear everything behind the Walmart mass shooting. So, but seeing that that has taken so long, and you see that Kiki's family have been waiting for 40 years, and I'm sure there's other victims out there that have similar stories. I've had some posts, people contacting me with similar stories where they've been waiting for justice for a long time, and the constitutional crisis in El Paso has taken their rights to have justice away from um, the people. And I'll talk about that too, because clearly there is one constitutional crisis after the other in El Paso, Texas. And this has been going on for a long time. That's my point. And we knew when everything was happening with our son that something was so stinky, and we couldn't really put our finger on it. And now we understand. We understand it's absolutely a deep state. It's a non American entity, a non American criminal group that has infiltrated into the system to exploit our system, to exploit the United States with their criminal trafficking. And it's $1 billion enterprise. And, after 40 years, of course, um, it has grown. It has grown. And it is a real threat. It is a super threat to national security, so much so that President Trump now has deployed a striker unit, striker brigade to the border. I'm doing this all by heart, so please, if I get it wrong, put a message there. But he has deployed a striker brigade there at the border because this is a huge threat to our national security, because this is an infiltration into our agencies and institutions at every level, by a foreign entity, um, I should say, serving a foreign entity, and which means, the oath that they take means nothing to them. The United States flag means nothing to them. It's just what it means is they can exploit it, and they've exploited for billions and billions of dollars. I would even say trillions, because what is it, $8.7 trillion in the last how many years? It kind of came out today. I can't remember the exact number when I was reading through all the information being sent, but $8 trillion stuck out. Woo, that stuck out. $8 trillion in the last, what is it, 5, 10 years, which would make a difference. But still, that's so much money, y'all. That is so much money for our national defense. And where is it? What is it for? And what could that have been? I mean, it, all you have to do is divide the number of citizens in this country into that humongous, absolutely humongous number. And I don't know how many times you could have gone to the moon and back, with that kind of number. It just stacking up the $1 bills or whatever. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's just such a huge number. We can't even wrap our thoughts around that kind of number until you start actually writing it down and doing some calculation of what you can buy for that, or what each person would get if you would divide the population number into that 8.7 trillion dollars. I mean, it's just huge, huge. So it is absolutely the exploitation of our banking system of uh, which is faulty, right? Which is faulty. It's we're Ron Paul supporters to audit the Fed, which absolutely got shadow banned. You know, they just did not want you to even know about the Federal Reserve Bank, that's a private bank. It's not a federal bank, even though it has that name. It's a ruse. It's it's a masquerade. It's absolutely a masquerade, and we've known that for a long time. Richard knew that. Richard knew that, and that came in, uh, just I think a year right before the IRS became a thing in this country. And so it is, a very faulty banking system. And then the whole Keynesian banking system on debt is faulty. And they exploited that. They exploited the faulty system. The dollar used to be attached to gold in 1970. Uh, what year was it? In the 1971, I believe, we went off the gold standard, so that, money could be just digital, it could just be created. It didn't have to have any kind of gold to back it up. You could just print it, and now we digitize it. And um, so, they just exploited the system. So 40 years, um, once that money machine got going, and if you got into the contracts, military contracts or school contracts, because the ISDs are absolutely part of this. It's like a little doorway into the whole system. And you can just exploit the independent school districts funding. You just can exploit it so easily. And of course, everything else. And if you have bad intentions, right? If you don't honor your oath, if you don't care about the flag, if you don't care about the country, there's nothing holding you back. You can absolutely create a deep state. You can absolutely create a criminal enterprise. And that is exactly what has happened. And our focus is, El Paso. And, after 4 years, it's been very, very clear. You have a medical examiner, a chief medical examiner, Mario Raskin Ortiz, who violated his visa. He couldn't even with that visa, he should never have gotten the position. It's a 400 and almost $450,000 position a year. And he's not qualified. You need to be an American citizen. You need to have a loyalty to the country when you are determining the cause and manner of death for these very capital crimes, capital murder crimes, right? You have to have some kind of attachment to the country. Otherwise, you can be bribed very, very easily. And he is absolutely not qualified, and was brought in by Veronica Escobar. And they've been manipulating ever since. And we weren't the original people who caught the violations. It's been watchdog groups that made us aware, not made us aware, but that thankfully were made aware of this because of the autopsy report numbers that we received, that we had evaluated and everything like that, and they are absolutely legit. Um, and so if they're covering it up, it's covering it up because they have an illegitimate um, foreign um, loyal to a foreign entity. And uh, you know, then when you when you start doing some research and investigating, because if he autopsied Richard's remains, if he autopsied this all of the Walmart mass shooting, so if he is not loyal and he's working for a deep state, if he's working for a criminal enterprise, people need to know that. And then to see him connected to Bliss Avenue, to see him connected to Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, um, who's part of the Walmart mass shooting case, and also family member of Danae Katzen Gonzalez Ambriz, who's married to Jonathan Caleb Ambriz, who is connected to Jonathan Campos Slavitt. Um, when you see these connections, which is connected to Delta Battery 143, which is connected to Dallas Hart, which is connected to, of course, through the articles, you see the connection between Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia and Leilani Hart, the two criminals, absolutely with criminal history, both of them, and major criminal history, and and them being false witnesses um, in the case of our son, which then connects it all to the Walmart mass shooting, right? Connects it all through, and then to see the medical examiner being a constitutional crisis, being part of this, and having real issues, and absolutely needs to be investigated and cannot be trusted. If he was on the up and up, and we were receiving reports that um, were honest, then we could believe him. But that is not what's happening. The whole thing is stinky. It's not honest. It is illegal. It's criminal, with criminal connections, and then also the ties to the cartel, the ties to the Sinaloa cartel, which have now been designated a terrible organization, right? The big T, which has huge legal impact on this. So that is a huge um, constitutional crisis right there with the medical examiner. That, really is a very, very, very important position. And so, with our watchdog um, that have been watching all of this unfold in Texas, and has a long history, and then getting uh, analysis of the information that we have, confirming that what we have is legitimate. Um, and then seeing the criminal activity that Mario Rascon, also Veronica Escobar, who was behind this, and then Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, and then connected to the prime suspects in the murder of our son, that they have a connection together. So that makes a motive for the chief medical examiner, Mario Raskin Ortiz, to cover up, right? To cover up and to be up to no good. So that's why that is absolutely a constitutional crisis, and congressional crisis. So that's one of them. And then, of course, what's happening in the DA's office there, the prosecutor's office, and the AUSA's for the Western District. Um, because Jaime Esparza was the district attorney in the 34th Judicial District when the Walmart mass shooting happened, when Richard's murder happened. And, you have um, a cybersecurity hacker, award-winning one, working in the DA's office, right? That means there's a connection between Michael Maiella Jr., Michael G. Maiella Jr., and Jaime Esparza. Um, and his connection also that's documented in the FBI field office there in El Paso, which is also um, guilty of leaking with Nieto, right? With Eddie Nieto Jr., Jesus Eddie Nieto Jr., of leaking the key whistleblower file exposing the tampering and the interference in our son's murder case and identifying the key suspects in our son's murder case being leaked out to the key suspects, Leilani Hart and CID agent right there on Fort Bliss, Tavita Nusa. And not only the file and his complaint, but also his name, right? Judge Roger Rodriguez, his name was leaked out, endangering him. And for Michael Maiella to have this direct connection with Eddie Nieto and also his direct connection to Jaime Esparza, and then his direct connection to working for the Walmart security, right? Walmart security, cybersecurity, or this, just the whole security section for Walmart. Something is really stinky. That's not just a coincidence, right? And Michael Maiella, it doesn't stop there. He has his connection with his father, right? His father is the manager for get this, the federal courthouse that was um, uh, presiding over the federal case of Patrick Crucius, the Walmart mass shooting case, right there, the federal case of it. So Michael Maiella, um, him and his father's son, Michael Maiella Sr., Michael Maiella Jr., they are right there with this huge conflict of interest, just together, overseeing the this federal case. And what is the big conflict of interest? The big conflict of interest is that Michael Maiella Jr. and his sister, and Michael Maiella's daughter, right? The manager of the courthouse, the federal courthouse, is married to Patrick Crucius's brother, right? Is married to the alleged shooter in the Walmart mass shooting case, um, his brother. And Judge Guadarrama um, was allowed to sit on the case and also allowed Jaime Esparza and Joe Spencer allowed it also um, to uh, to prosecute a case where he even had a conflict of interest because his sister was at the Walmart and the case was quote unquote personal to him. This is absolutely really really extortion of the American people because it just reeks of um, something deeper than law enforcement and a judicial system in the United States, right? This absolutely reeks of something that's absolutely criminal, right? Because Jaime Esparza is very good friends with Sam Medrano, is very good friends with Joe Spencer. And when you find out, and if you do some investigation and see how they became the lead individuals in the state case and then also The federal case being so corrupt, right? The federal case is so corrupt, and Guadarrama, knowing that his right hand man, the manager of the federal courthouse, putting this whole court case together, right, organizing it and everything. His daughter is married to Patrick Crucius's brother, and giving Patrick Crucius in 7,000 years in prison, um, knowing that he has autism, knowing that he's not a racist, allowing Joe Spencer, who is Patrick Crucius's lawyer, to propagate a false narrative, allowing Jaime Esparza, who was the DA at the time, to stay on the case, even with a conflict of interest. Not calling that out. Sam Madrano not calling that out. And why? Why? Because of the Pat C, right? Of the Pat C, the application for an appointed counsel. Because of that paper that the Council of Judges allowed to go through, um, this whole appointment of Sam Madrano, the whole spiel with Joe Spencer, and Joe Spencer's telling both Sam Madrano and Judge Guadarrama, because we have the audio tapes of him saying it. We have it out of his own mouth, right? Saying, well, I'm not going to do this for a nickel and dime. I want an open checkbook. I want an open checkbook. And so this Pat C, this application for appointment for counsel, um, was the open checkbook. Let's take Patrick Crucius, whose family is right there in the federal courthouse. Um, and he was living in San Antonio in a very nice apartment, and he's from a wealthy family. But we'll put down on the application, we'll commit fraud because it's absolutely fraudulent. We'll say 000, right? That he has no money, he makes no money, he's not worth any money, he has no expenses. He has no expenses, and yet they say that he purchased this high powered rifle online. Well, how did he do that? How did he pay for his internet to upload that manifesto? Or did, Michael Maiella help him? Because he's this hacker, I don't know. I don't know. That needs to be investigated. But that's my thinking. I'm like, oh, I'm very suspicious of Michael Maiella's part, and this whole thing with the mysterious 8chan fake, because we know for a fact that Patrick Crucius failed kindergarten, right? Um, couldn't even get through special education well, because he had to even be put in a corner there, or a special spot, because he would hit himself. And he's special needs. He's a special needs individual. He didn't start speaking until almost 6 years old, according to Joe Spencer's. Like, I don't, I think it's six. So he had, just a lot of learning problems, and his name is Pat C, right? That's how he signed his name, Pat C, on this application, and it's very childish script. I'm a teacher, and I'm looking at that, and I'm like, okay, this is supposed to be a grown man that can have very quick reflexes, but no, when you're special needs in that situation, you don't have that kind of reflexes to do this kind of crime. You just don't have the ability to do this type of crime. And he didn't have the hate. He did not have the hate. He doesn't think outside the box like that. If he's what Judge Guadarrama said, this severe mental health condition, right? Um, and of course, Joe Spencer even said it, that he doesn't even know and that and then uh, he said that Patrick Crucius, when he asked him, "Hey, I have a brown ASS. Do you have a problem with that?" And he's like, "I don't have any racism." Um, you know, So the whole thing, and of course, Judge Guadarrama knows this all because his manager, his right hand man, his daughter is married to Patrick Crucius's brother. Come on, you know, wow. Um, so it is really um, clearly orchestrated, and then the whole witnesses. When you look up the witnesses, clearly, someone told me, someone coined, I don't know, are there something called crisis actors? You know, um, someone said, "Oh, I think these are crisis actors because of their connection," and I'm like, "Well, we know that Ernest Christopher Grant was up to no good, right? And those that colluded with him, including Beto O'Rourke, were up to no good, and they were absolutely, it was like some kind of political agenda with before it even started. This El Paso Strong, being beside the bed. They just had this media thing, and they made him the media sweetheart, and he even got to meet with Governor Abbott. I'm not a Governor Abbott fan, okay? I'm just going to tell you that right now. I'm not a governor. I'm really not a Governor Abbott fan. I think there's too many things that are very, very stinky, y'all. Too many things that are so stinky. Nope, nope. And I understand that. Uh, I, I I really pray justice. I really pray for justice because I am not a fan of Governor Abbott. I'm not really even that big of a fan of Paxton, to be honest with you. No, I'm not. I'm not. But I'm willing to work with them, just like I was willing to work with Yvonne Rosales and Jaime Esparza and James Montoya. We've been in communication with him. We've let him know everything before he even won the election. And also Bill Hicks. Numerous times we absolutely were willing to work with Bob Moore, numerous times, right? And he's just so up to no good. They're absolutely criminals. They're absolutely criminals. And so, how many ways can you say deep state? Because there's no other explanation for this level of lawlessness, this level of collusion, criminal collusion, in order to protect the criminal trafficking and cartel network that has gripped over 40 years, right? They've gripped it. I mean, the whole thing with Kiki Camarero, the DEA agent, that it was just brutal, like Richard's death, right? 40 years earlier. Brutal death. Um, to see that cover it for 40 years. Do not tell me that it takes 40 years to get justice for a DEA agent. You know, no. And the same thing with a whistleblower soldier, a U.S. Army soldier. There is a constitutional crisis in El Paso, and it's right there in the federal courthouse. It's right there in the DA's office. It's right there in the chief medical examiner's office. It's absolutely in the AUSA's office because um, after Yvonne Rosales had that upset win, then they appointed Jaime Esparza in the AUSA. He was the firewall. Now he's fired. Now he's fired, and he might say, "Oh, I expected that." No, he was fired. Um, and if he was worth his salt, he wouldn't have been fired. Okay, because that's just it. He's not worth his salt. And him saying, "Oh, he's worried about so many people being fired." This is going to delay things. What are you talking about? You've just delayed and delayed and delayed. You sat on that Walmart case for almost 2 years and delayed it and collected millions of dollars. You extorted with that stupid application for appointed counsel 000 for Patrick Crucius that was approved to extort the American taxpayer. What are you talking about, Jaime Esparza? You are just the worst, the worst. You needed to be fired, and I'm so glad you were fired. The pain, I can't even tell you how much pain, you know, God knows. God knows. And God is a just God. And thank God for that. Thank you. Um, yeah, so Jaime Esparza needed to be fired. And anything he says does not hold any weight at all. He is absolutely wears a big L on his forehead, a big L, and he's a criminal. He needs to be really. We'll see. We'll see if that happens. He's absolute criminal, and the collusion with Joe Spencer, who's absolutely did the same thing, right? Even worse, because he sold out Patrick Crucius. He took advantage of a special needs individual, right? They took advantage of a special needs individual. It's just how, you're so cold, Joe. You're so cold. I put that in my song because he is so cold. What a hard hearted loser. Just a total loser. Um, and okay, you extorted millions of dollars. Maybe you have a fancy car, maybe whatever. I don't know. But in the whole scope of life, in the book of life, you have a big L next to your name. Um, you know, uh, and then I shouldn't have even said that because I'm not God, but boy, and if I was, I'd put a big L beside his name. Um, Thank God that he is the one that is so steadfast and patient and everything, and judges justly because I'm a little skewed because of what I know what they did to my son. Um, yeah. Mm, I tell you, these people, they extorted the American people and they covered up these murders, y'all. They covered up what happened to Kiki for so long. They covered up what happened at the Walmart and all of these victims for now almost, well, 6 years, right? And they have done that for Richard. They covered it up. And, so we have a constitutional crisis there. And then that's not all. We have a constitutional crisis on Fort Bliss. We have the VA office absolutely extorting, abusing their power to get disability benefits. You would not believe who's getting disability benefits, full disability benefits, and it's uh, with a big F, fraud, waste, and abuse of the system, like over $5,000 a month and no property taxes and special, rates for your vehicle, or maybe that's free. I don't know. But they get all of these benefits, and they all need to be looked into because it is all um, a control factor. And on Fort Bliss, they were absolutely controlling the soldiers. And we know for a fact that 14-year-olds, young girls, were being brought in. One 14-year-old was living in the barracks. And it's a terrible thing because, the worst type of crimes against a child. And of course, 14-year-olds sometimes don't look like a child and they're groomed to not act like a child. And then that's all filmed, and that's all filmed. And if anyone steps out of bounds, if they have taken the bait and they have done things that they wish they didn't have didn't do. And that was all filmed. And they want to then, redeem their character and pivot and do the right thing and become a whistleblower. They can't because they were filmed. They were filmed, and that would be um, a huge crime against a minor, a huge crime against a minor. And so and they didn't have that on Richard, right? They didn't have that on Richard. Richard was sparkling clean. But I think that they tried to send in um, these honeypot traps. I really do. Um, um, was Belen Rocha a honeypot trap, right? Was the madame of honeypot trappers was that Leilani Hart, right? Because we know her activity with the hotel. We know her activity, um, well, in her confession, um, the facilitating of a friend's uh, child in being absolutely the worst type of crime done to a child, a 7-year-old child, in her master bedroom by multiple members of her household. She needs to be arrested. She needs to be arrested so bad. It's just like ASAP. What are you doing, Agent Morales? What are you waiting for? Who are you working for? Who are your loyalties to? Are they for the people of El Paso County, your district? Are they for that? Or are they for something else? Border illegal activity? Is that what you're covering for? Is that what your position is? Because Jaime Esparza absolutely, um, you know, blocked, right? Blocked anything. I mean, I'm wondering if, beside his desk was a shredder, like complaints come in and he just shreds it, right? I don't know. I don't know, but that should be investigated. And is the field office there in El Paso, complaints come in and they just leak it out and then shred it or whatever, and they just do nothing to let these criminal cartel connected um, businesses, these criminal trafficking businesses continue with impunity, right? Just let them do it. Just let them do it and hurt so many people. As long as you give me some Benjamins under the table here and there, right? Give me the Benjamins or give me the benefits. Give me the benefit. Well, why do you have to give me the Benjamins if you can just have me train me to sign some paperwork and stuff like that, and I'll just get benefits that'll make the American taxpayer pay me the Benjamins, right? That's that whole VA thing, right? That's and probably other things too. Maybe it's for a job, right? Maybe I want to be a big lawyer with a ISD, get over $200,000 a year. Okay, I'll block some things, I'll do some things, I'll tamper with some documents and stuff like this. I'll get rid of some witness statements or twist witness statements and then give me the job. Give me the job that I'm not even qualified for, or not as qualified for, and put the other person out of business. I mean, I don't know if that happens. I don't know if that happens, Um, $200,000 a year. People like that kind of money, and maybe they do terrible things for it, right? Maybe they do terrible things for it. Um, and I know it sounds like a little talking in circles, but what I'm saying is there is amazing constitutional corruption crisis going on in El Paso. And what is coming out since this last month is absolutely telling you that what we've been saying all along is absolutely true. And, go to the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court and ask those judges that are not judges, they're just masquerading, if they have been elected. And if they say no, then say, get the hell out. You're not a judge. Because the Texas Constitution says if you are a full county-wide jurisdiction, then you need to let the people elect you. You need to go through an election, which is a tough thing to go through because you have to have character to go through that. You're going to be exposed who your loyalties belong to. And your loyalty needs to be of the people, for the people, by the people, that's where your loyalty should be. And so this very powerful court since 2015 has full jurisdiction over the entire county of El Paso. Therefore, the Texas Constitution says they need to be elected. And they're not. They're not. And you don't have to believe me. Just go on over there and ask them. Therefore, they're illegitimate. You can't just say, I'm a doctor. You can't just say, I'm a judge. You can't just say, no, there is a process and you have to check out those boxes. That's like in the DA's office with Bill Hicks. When you are appointed, right, especially him, he had it really made because he had a recess appointment. So he didn't have to be scrutinized about anything. And I see why. And this is where, I'm not a big fan of Governor Abbott because Governor Abbott is the one that appointed him. And my goodness, he couldn't, all these lawyers over there, you couldn't find someone better than Bill Hicks. Who is Bill Hicks connected to get this job, right? And then he's so bad. He's so, let's just say dismissive. Let's just say that to be nice about the whole thing, dismissive, that he got this cushy job in a cushy way without any scrutiny. And then the Secretary of State writes him an email and says, congratulations. Here is the Statement of Officer PDF. Here is the Oath of Office PDF. You have to fill these in. You have to first send the Statement of Officer. You can fax it in, and then you can take your oath of office, right? So you get like very elementary school type instructions and everything handed to you. There's no way you can make a mistake. You sign your Statement of Officer, you fax it in, then you take your oath of office. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. What's the problem? He didn't do it. He didn't do it. He went and had his oath of office. He didn't want to sign the anti-bribery line, did he? And he took the oath of office before he even submitted the Statement of Officer, the anti-bribery line that he had to sign, right? Swearing that he didn't take a bribe. And then he goes and does the oath of office. And then a month later, the Secretary of State is like, hey, wait a minute. I don't have a Statement of Officer on file for you. And we have some nosy, people wanting it, right? Some watchdogs, government watchdogs wanting it. I need to have it. And he sends it in the next day. The 26th of January, he took his oath. The 22nd of December of 2022 sends in his Statement of Officer. On the 26th of January 2023, right? But they have to date it, right? And the Secretary of State dated it January 11th, which is a crime to mess with timestamps. It's a crime. So maybe there's a grace period, but not that I know of, because I'll tell you why there's not a grace period for the Statement of Officer. If you sign the Statement of Officer and file it with who you need to, and this is the Secretary of State, it is saying, I am going to take this oath of office, swearing that I do it without taking a bribe. Okay. So if you submit that after you take the oath of office, it nullifies the statement of officer legally, right? To us, people were like, "Oh, okay, whatever." No, but in a court of law, that statement of officer is nullified. So let's say we found out that he took a bribe. And we said, "But wait a minute, you signed the statement of officer saying you didn't take a bribe." Well, that doesn't count because I signed it after the oath of office. It doesn't count. It's nullified, right? Even though before the oath of office, I might have taken a bribe, but I signed that afterwards. You see, there's a legal, it's really legal juggling what they're doing into their favor. So he did that, but they backdated it to the 11th. The problem with that is that on January 11th, the Senate was in session, and so that nullifies everything because if it's in session, then he needs to go through scrutiny of the Senate, the Texas Senate, because he was a recess appointment when they were in recess. So the whole thing it's a little confusing and convoluted, but it is absolutely messed up. Okay? It's messed up. And he was never the district attorney. Everything he did as a district attorney is absolutely botched. Botched. And now with James Montoya, it is really openly botched. And who is part of it again? The same Secretary of State and the county courthouse clerk. The county clerk, Baroness, the county clerk is now, messed this whole thing up. And now El Paso does not have a legitimate DA because the Texas Constitution says when you have this kind of chaos, when this is the problem and you don't have a DA, then you have the holdover clause. And the holdover clause means the last person that held the office legitimately has to be the DA until they fill the spot. Well, that person is not Jaime Esparza. That person is Yvonne Rosales. And she's, where is she? She is not fulfilling her oath. So there's a constitutional crisis in El Paso, a constitutional crisis in the medical examiner's office, a constitutional crisis in the DA's office, a constitutional crisis in the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court, a constitutional crisis in the El Paso Federal Courthouse, a constitutional crisis in the field office of the FBI, a constitutional crisis on Fort Bliss in the JAG office and also at the VA, a constitutional crisis in El Paso. And it's not just one, it's, and a constitutional crisis in the ISDs in Ysleta and also in the El Paso ISD. There's a constitutional crisis. So, and I'm probably missing some, right? So this is absolutely, and I would say in the El Paso intelligence community, there's a constitutional crisis. And, so this is, and I should lay out all the evidence for that, but that is absolutely indication. You can maybe have one real chaotic time in one of these institutions and agencies, but to have them all together being a constitutional crisis is not an accident. It's not an accident. It is absolutely an assault on our country. And it is a national security issue. And so for Trump to be sending striker units to stop this border crisis is a move to, once you stop the border crisis, right? And this uh, ability to criminal traffic across the border. And then that cuts off the funds, right? That cuts off the funds, the, uh, billions of dollars. And then you can address in the institutions who are the bad actors. And of course, we believe that Michael Pleaders, we believe there's a huge, good chance that he's been fired. He was immigration judge. He's also the husband of Veronica Escobar. Both of them absolutely up to no good, causing a real crisis in El Paso, right? An immigration judge. We also believe that General Counsel Foley, who's providing the visas, right, at the consulate, that that let's just say, uh, we hope that he's no longer in that position either. And then we also received confirmation that Jaime Esparza was fired, which takes down the firewall from that prosecutor's office of the AUSA for the Western District. So the prosecutor's office there is now, we're waiting who is going to take that place, who's going to be the prosecutor, right? So, but it's a very dangerous situation, even though I think that office is in San Antonio. But you have to get a hold of this criminal, um, can I say deep state? Can I say connected to a terrible organization? This criminal trafficking, because, they look at what they did to Richard. Look at what they did to Kiki Camarero, right? Look at what they did. They are absolutely have no respect for life or for law. They want to continue their criminal trafficking. So, I'm not, I don't have the chessboard in front of me. Even though we have our own chessboard and trying to put all the pieces on the chessboard, I guess that's what you would call it, these complaints, letting everyone know. Um, and somewhere in there, there are patriots. Somewhere in there are people that are ethical. Um, um, but it is 40 years, more than 40 years. It had to be even more than 40 years of organizing this criminal organization that has gripped El Paso. And I would say really sinking into Texas, um, and so for President Trump to be so courageous to address this, because it's big, it's so big, right? So big, billions of dollars in business they do, exploiting. And that's only in the criminal trafficking part. What about exploiting like the benefits, right? And the positions, this $450,000 a year position as chief medical examiner, or the, $200,000 position in an ISD, in a independent school district, right? If you get this big position, what about all of these disability benefits? It is really ugly. It is very, very ugly. But to address it, and I think that's what's happening in the midst of trying to address the international, um, uh, look, I lived in Europe for 20 years. Over 20 years. I absolutely understand the points that President Trump is making. My parents worked, I think, 9 years in Moscow, Russia. My mom would tell me, she can do it exactly because they were also civilian there for a while with the star hardware, right? Um, so, uh, you know, to be over there and working in the embassy, um, and having that experience, those, um, it would take me a long time to explain to you all the experiences that we've had, in Poland, in Europe, in Ireland, in Germany, in my parents working at the embassy there, in the American embassy there in Russia, my mom working in the adoption part of the embassy. Um, when Americans were adopting um, Russian children, most of them with cleft palate, right? A lot of cleft palate children were being adopted. And and think about that. Um, in the United States, we could absolutely do surgery on these children with cleft palate and give them a normal life. Back in the 1990s, it was really it was tough. It was really tough there, trying to recover from 50 years of communism. Really tough. I mean, it was, when you're in a city of 6 million people and you can't even get a gallon of paint, right? You can't even get paint to paint your house or whatever. It was tough. So to have those experiences, to know what it was all like, um, to see President Trump uh, be so disrespected by Zelensky, and he was absolutely a creep, absolutely a creep. Now the likes of Beto O'Rourke want to spin that, right? But the truth is, you know, Ukraine would not, have a chance to even be a country if it wasn't for the United States. Um, and I know that we had a terrible part to play in all the politics there. But, it is a very complicated area and a very corrupt area. And to, address a negotiation that was already settled, before he even came to the White House, uh, the negotiation was already done deal, right? It was a done deal. He just was going there to do the press, to sign the paper, to have lunch, and go have peace, and start rebuilding with American dollars, rebuilding the country. And that means an economics, right? An economics boom. Why does he not want to save his country and have an economics boom and have peace? And do it on an American dime, right? Really, that's what that was all about. And he was just so disrespectful. Eh, just and and somebody pulled his strings, right? Somebody pulled his strings, and now to go to Europe, that wow. Um, I guess, Europe can go and make the deal then. Let Europe make the deal. Let Europe pay the money, right? And I was in Germany, and when the wall came down and the Germans had to pay for the reunification of Eastern and Western Germany, the Western Germans were screaming at the top of their lungs. They were just so angry because nothing had been done over there in Eastern Germany during the communism, right? Nothing. It was just rubble. It was just, you know, no hardware stores, right? No do it yourself. No, and, well, I shouldn't say that. The people were just amazing, that they would try with the little bit that they had to do it themselves, right? But there was no major rebuilding. We saw the rebuilding of Dresden. We saw the rebuilding of the Frauenkirche there in Germany, in Dresden, Germany. which was in the former Eastern Zone, former DDR. Just amazing, amazing to see uh, the stall, the stall of any kind of recovery after World War II. And then Western Germany had to pay. They had to pay. Taxes went way up and everything. And they had to pay for the rebuilding of Eastern Germany. And that was their own country, right? And it cost a lot of money. Now, I guess they're going to do it for Ukraine. I don't know. I don't know what's going to come out of that. Um, but the reporting, when you are a beggar, and that's what Zelensky is, he's a beggar, right? Um, he's not a billionaire that can rebuild his country. He's begging for American taxpayers to pay him, right? That's what he's asking for. Um, and we're, uh, of course, we're in debt. We don't have it to give, really. But President Trump and his very amazing way of finding a way, making a way, um, was making a deal for those mineral rights. We'll scratch your back, you scratch our back. We'll both prosper in this, and we'll have people over there with the mining and everything. And then that will also be a hedge for Russia to attack Ukraine, because you had so many Americans there with the mining. And then if something happens, um, if Americans were killed, it would be an attack on America, right? An attack on Americans. So um, that's how I have talked it out with our family and all of that. If you have better. Oh, thank you, Donna. Thank you for coming on. Love you. Um, so, this whole mess is El Paso is the front door to the United States, and it has a huge constitutional crisis. And so it's a microcosm of the macro that is happening. And you can see that clearly in Ukraine. That's my whole point. It's the same old. It's bad players with not good intentions, with no loyalty, with no honor. When you make a deal and you say, I'm going to come there and we're making a deal and we're going to sign the deal, and then you come and you renege, and that you at least should have the decency to call before you even arrive and say, no, I'm canceling. I'm not coming. Um, but that's not what happened. And to see this political divide, like what they did with the Walmart mass shooting, there's going to be some really false narratives out there. And we know with Walmart that it was absolutely false narrative. So this case with Kiki Camarero, and I hope I said that name right, um, it does give us hope, because it means that after 40 years, more than 40 years of, just shredding evidence, I guess, and not moving forward with a case, and um, after that phone call that AG Bondi and I believe President Trump called the family up, um, it's to give them justice, to say that this Rafael Caro Quintero, I wrote it down, was captured now, was given over, not captured, but released is extradited to the United States. 29 Sinaloa cartel. Well, they're not just Sinaloa cartel, they're from um, multiple Juarez cartel, Sinaloa cartel, the border, all the names are right there. I don't have them memorized. But and that this this alleged, and there's lots of evidence. So we'll see. But that this family is getting justice finally after 40 years gives us hope that we're in the right time, that we are going to get some arrests. And Leilani Hart absolutely needs to be arrested. There is no excuse. Um, all the evidence is there. Either which way you go, whichever which way you argue for her, she needs to be arrested. Okay, that's why we can say that so boldly, because she has no way out. There's just no way out. She needs to be arrested. Her crimes are just so documented and so vast and so egregious that she needs to be arrested. So we have hope that that's happening, and we will let you know. We're absolutely let you know this whole thing with Michael Maiella. That has us, like jaw dropping. It's like, wow, that is such an indication that this is such a criminal enterprise because of that situation. Okay, everyone, thank you so much. And thank you, Donna, for coming on. And, um, we'll be back tomorrow, God willing. Thank you so much. And don't forget to share and like and subscribe and all of that.